on social media of Dwayne Haskins not wearing a mask at an event with strippers, which the team has said it's going to handle internally, either through suspending the quarterback or fining him. But also, according to multiple reports, the Washington football team settled a sexual misconduct allegation regarding owner Dan Snyder with a former employee back in 2009. So there is obviously a lot to unpack here. Stephen A., what's your reaction to the Washington football team's stories dealing with Haskins and also Snyder?
Well, first of all, I think they're moving in a forward direction, and I think they need to be given credit for that. You know what? You don't like to see that your owner was settling for anything, because regardless of what we want to deduce from it, ultimately it implies a level of guilt when you settle. That may not necessarily be the case. There's plenty of situations in our society where people settle because they don't want the noise, the PR, et cetera, and they're willing to pay a monetary price just to allow the problem to go away, even though they may have been innocent. We don't know what the situation is with Daniel Snyder other than the reports that he settled. So we don't know about his guilt or innocence, but because of his reputation in terms of people being down on this franchise because of its inept history and its inept ways, at least over the last 20 plus years, almost 30 years, the bottom line is he's not going to get the benefit of the doubt in a lot of situations, primarily because of that and because of the culture that he clearly oversaw. The things that were transpiring within the organization that ultimately led to dismissals and people being removed, and ultimately Julie Donaldson arriving there to head media relations. And forgive me, the brother's name escapes me that's there now, overseeing business operations that we had on this show, Mr.
Jason
Wright himself. The bottom line. Jason Wright. Thank you, Max. That's right. Him and his reputation has been impeccable, and by all accounts, the two of them have been doing a phenomenal job and deserve credit and deserve our respect because of the direction that they have this franchise moving in. And Daniel Snyder deserves credit for bringing them on board. Having said that, it's not a good look, plain and simple. But there is those two. There is Ron Rivera. There is the fact that the team is competing and in position to win the division crown. They're clearly moving in a forward direction, and we have to give props where it's due in that regard. The only other thing that I would say is this. Dwayne Haskins, my brother, I have no idea what you were thinking about. I know that he wasn't at a strip club and instead of invited strippers to his home. It's COVID-19. You're in the middle of a playoff push, and that is what is on your mind. It's the height of irresponsibility. It was flat out stupid. I know he apologized, and I'm not going to pile on. But particularly you being at the quarterback position and being a black quarterback at that, knowing the challenges, people playing your position with your ethnicity, knowing the challenges that you share and what it represents. For you to be caught up in a situation like this, you should be ashamed of yourself.
You know, it just occurred to me as you said that, Stephen A., when you said a black quarterback, we are finally at the place where black quarterback. There are black quarterbacks all over the league. You know, it's not like it used to be where that was like, oh, look at that, a black quarterback.
Right.
But let me just say, we largely see this the same way in terms of the Dan Snyder stuff. First of all, I don't give him credit for bringing on Jason Wright and Ron Rivera because he had to do it. He was dragged kicking and screaming into the 21st century, arrogantly saying, I'm never going to change the name. And then what happened? He got rid of the racist name, didn't he? And then finally he had to get rid of his yes men and bring in actual football people, right? Jason Wright and Ron Rivera. Now, the question is, can they insulate this team from the pernicious effects of his incompetent ownership? Maybe. Maybe it's promising. We agree about that. I mean, Jason Wright seems to know what he's doing, and Ron Rivera does too, and they seem to be going in the right direction. Now, let me just address Dwayne Haskins for a second. He was young and made a stupid mistake. Not the end of the world kind of a mistake. He wasn't out partying. He brought the party to him. Who knows? Maybe he had people tested. I don't know. This is one of those things where you say, when I was 23, if every stupid thing I did, or the dumbest thing I did, or among the dumb things I did, was made public, I would be sitting there and people would be saying, boy, that's stupid. It's a kind of mistake I'm willing to write off to youth, but we'll see. And I have not given up on Dwayne Haskins, Stephen A. You know why? Because first of all, this was not Jason Wright, Ron Rivera's guy, right? Like, Dan Snyder is the owner. You can't do anything about that. And the quarterback they inherited was not their guy. But I want to look at Haskins for a second. He was a one-year starter in college. And as that year went on, he got better and better, throwing the ball accurately and deep down the field, right? But it was still only a one-year starter. And while his mobility maybe is a little underrated, he's not a fast quarterback. Like, Daniel Jones went ahead of him, partly because Daniel Jones is fast and Dwayne Haskins is not nearly as fast, not nearly as mobile. And so what we've seen in the modern game is, especially the faster quarterbacks, they get to start earlier because they're dual threats. And you want him to win a Super Bowl in that rookie contract, right? So you get him experience year one, and certainly by year two they're starting. But a lot of times early in year one they're starting. That's not Dwayne Haskins. He's built more like an old school quarterback. He's more of a pocket passing type of quarterback and an inexperienced one even on the college level at that, right? And so the question is, at 23, having played at 22, 23, has there been improvement? Is there reason to believe that in the future he can be a successful quarterback? I'm not ready to say no yet. I think he is capable of throwing the ball accurately down the field. I have seen it. He has made certain improvements year one to year two for him. And even in light of this stupid mistake of youth, I wouldn't be so fast to say, let's get rid of this guy, right? Washington has invested a lot in him. And if the trajectory of his career is, in fact, more like those old school quarterbacks who he resembles in the style of his play, it might be year 3 or 4 before they get returns on their investment. And since they've already made that investment, maybe it makes sense to keep him around.
I don't disagree with you. I'm not saying get rid of him. Let's be clear. I'm just saying he should be ashamed of himself for finding himself in this position at this particular moment in time.
I'm sure he realizes
COVID-19 is going on. That's the height of irresponsible behavior from a team that's you're the quarterback, man. What the hell are you thinking? Period.
Telling no lies.
Yeah, I'm sure he's aware of the implications of his actions. In fact, Dwayne Haskins could be suspended for his actions, but Adam Schefter did report this week that there is a real chance that Alex Smith could return this week for their game against the Panthers on Sunday. All right, guys, we're going to wrap it there. But speaking of COVID protocols, we do have some news coming out of Houston.
Into more traditional football conversation, and it means this. What is going on with the Steelers? Every week it seems to be something different. In week 13 against Washington, it was all the drops. They dropped 7 passes, their most in a game over the last 15 years. That handed them their first loss of the year after starting 11-0. Then they followed that up last week at the Bills. They converted just 10% of their third downs in Buffalo. That was tied for their second worst in a game that Ben Roethlisberger had started, so that felt bad. But then it seemed they had a get-right opportunity on Monday night against a bad team in Cincinnati. But they were the bad team that night. Big Ben completing only 8% of his passes that he threw at least 10 yards downfield. That was the worst by Roethlisberger in a game that he finished over the last 15 seasons. So just in every conceivable way, it has been a precipitous slide for the Steelers. And so, Ryan Clark, I start with you as my former Steeler here. I feel like all season long, I've been trying to get you more excited about the Steelers than you've wanted to be back to when they were, putting together this perfect run. Now maybe I'm starting to see a little bit of why. Can they turn this around in the next 2 weeks?
Can they? Yeah, they can. Will they? I don't necessarily believe they will. Sometimes you just don't have the people. And you look at defensively, they've lost those guys, the Bud Duprees, the Devin Bushes. You're not even playing with Spillane and Vince Williams at linebacker. But when you watch this offense, where's the physicality? Where's the inversion of the line? Where's the inverting of the line? You look at a 3rd and 1 that Snell barely got. It's because the linemen were in the backfield. And now you go to your aging quarterback. And I said it a few weeks ago. They're putting too much on Ben Roethlisberger. You have no run game. You have no play action game. You try to throw short passes in order to create shorter gains, to get runs and catches, to try to pick up first downs. And you can't push the ball down the field. So where do you go? That's all of football. You're not making the turnovers and pressuring the quarterback and getting things done defensively. You can't move the ball offensively. And when you lose a game to the Washington football team who is playing better, you say, oh, okay, that happens. And then you come back and you lose to the Buffalo Bills, who are probably the second best team in football. You say, okay, that happens. But the Cincinnati Bengals, with Ryan Finley, a dude that they didn't necessarily even know if they wanted to start and play the football game, Those are things you can't do. As players, you have to have a certain level of pride. As players, you have to understand that you need